Hey neighbor, it's me. Can you show me how to share the internet from my computer to my laptop so I can get internet on my laptop? Sure. Having that internet connection is important, especially if you're out on the road. And talking about being on the road, it's also important that you have a few other things out there with you. It's not only internet that's important. Hey, where did you go? I was getting to the point in a few minutes. This answer that I just gave here is actually something I wrote in a blog post many years ago before I figured out this blogging thing. The introductions we write in our articles are so crucial because you have just a few seconds there to get the user's attention and to make sure that they understand that you have something useful for them. In this video, we're going to look at a handful of typical mistakes people do in blog intros, especially if you're a new blogger. And if you fix these things that I show you in this video, you'll see an instant bump up in time on page and you will have a lower bounce rate. It's just an instant fix because you will scare people away if you're doing these things that I show you in this video. And we'll also address in this video how to write a great blog introduction. So let's get started. So the first issue or the first problem we need to talk about is what you just saw in the introduction to this video. You saw how I just added a lot of fluff there. And the writer will often do this if you give them a fixed word count they need to meet for the article. If you tell them that they have to write 1500 words or 2000 words, I like to give an interval. For example, this article needs to be between 1200 and 1600 words, and just stop whenever you're done and don't add any fluff. And it can also happen because the reader wants to share a personal story. This is more when you have an expert who really know what they're talking about. Let's say they've been out on a boat many times in the sea and they just want to share some cute stories in the introduction. That can cause the same issue where they want to drag people through this long story before they ever get to the point. So for new writers, you can fix this by just giving them a fixed word count they cannot go over in the introduction paragraph. For example, you can tell them to not go over 50 words in the introduction. By doing that, you have a fixed limit that's easy for them to understand until they really get this. Hey, it's me. You know how to make the perfect coffee. Which coffee machine are you using to make those awesome lattes? You need to get the Nespresso Plus coffee machine. It will completely transform the way you think about coffee. Your coffee will never be the same again. There's just nothing that matches it. It's absolutely the best thing out there when we're talking coffee. And not only that, also as soon as you pour the coffee into the cup, it will be so much better and look so much better than any other latte you have ever looked at. Notice how this answer contained literally no information. It only stated that the coffee is good and that it looks good. I mean, every coffee machine can probably do that. So there's two problems here. First, Google hate this because there's literally no information and they have started to go after this, which we'll talk about in a second. But also it gives no information to the reader, so there's really nothing to learn here. So it's really just stating the obvious, something that all products just do. And more importantly, Google is starting to crack down on this. We saw this recent Google review update where Google is starting to target mainly affiliate websites with pretty poor content, but in general just sites reviewing products. And we saw some sites getting hit where the majority of the content was just praising one product after the other, either in a list or maybe just a single product. So if you're not really comparing it to something else or not really giving them anything that they can learn other than just praising the product, it might not rank well in the future. And remember, this is something that's very, very easy for Google to detect. I mean, we have many plugins for the browser and email programs and writers and such that can detect the tone of voice. You'll sometimes see little smiley icons. You'll see it's happy or it's sad or it's aggressive or whatever. It'll detect the tone of voice. And if the tone of voice is super salesy in a review or a post that just mentions a lot of different products, you can be in trouble here. And this is also something that the AI writers, you probably remember that I did a video where I tested one of these new AI writing tools. It didn't come out too well. It didn't really do so well. You can see the video, there's a link in the description if you want to check it out. But these writers do a pretty good job of just going with some yada 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 marketing talk about how this product is fantastic or whatever. And it's really just pressing the button, like if you go to a car salesman and just seeing them praise this old crappy car or whatever. You know, they'll praise anything they want to sell you. And that's how this typically ends out in these articles. And that's also why you really need to think twice before you're using these AI writers. So enough about the AI writers. As you can tell, I'm not a huge fan. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to stand head and shoulders above the rest of the competition you should say, because if they're really not adding any value, if it's just yada 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 and just mentioning one product after the other, we're seeing Google cutting down on this. And I think that's fantastic for us who wants to produce great content, because it's an opportunity for us to really outrank these sites even without a lot of authority. We saw with the Google product review update lately that some of the sites that didn't have a lot of authority, if they had better content and they were not just praising one product after the other, it will sometimes beat some of these bigger sites. Hey dude, do you know how I can plug my guitar into my laptop? I just need to get those riffs in there, man. Absolutely. The first thing you need to do is to have the right cable that goes into your computer, and then you need to attach it to the guitar, and then you need to test that everything sounds just right before you get going.
And then you need to crank up the volume all the way to the right level, and then you need to open that program and this program, and then you need to adjust these little things, and before you're at it, it will all be done in a few seconds.
So the problem here is not that we have a lot of fluff necessarily. It's more that it's just a wall of text. It's like you just press the button and it just keeps going. It's hard to read and it's hard to listen to also. So you need to format your articles, especially in the introduction, because we need to capture the reader's eyes. We don't want them to just look at this block of text. It's horrible. Nobody wants to look at that or read that. That will make people bounce immediately. So you need to format it. You need to have a single sentence here or there and have no sentences more than 3 or 4 lines on a laptop screen. You also need to bold a sentence here and there just to mix it up. Just keep your passages short, because otherwise the readers landing on your page will probably not leave immediately because it's fluffy, but they will just skim all the way to the bottom if you never stop the eyes as they're skimming or scanning down the page. If they can scan all the way down to the bottom in 8-10 seconds without really focusing on any subheadings or bolded sentences or something like that, or bulleted lists or table, if there's very little formatting going on, you'll lose the reader's attention immediately. So in this video here, I'm only talking about the introduction and those first very crucial paragraphs up there that should definitely grab the reader's attention. But there are many other things that goes into creating a great blog post. So you need to check out this other video that I linked to in the description, where I go over exactly how to craft a great blog post today that will keep the reader engaged and also satisfy Google so you can get some good rankings today. So a few more things to think about in the introduction. Make sure to not use analogies from another niche. Let's say you're talking about the best webcam or whatever. Don't start talking about how this compares to something else, another product, and how this also is the case for normal cameras, because if you start your article by talking about a different product, just a slightly different product, Google might confuse your article and not be super certain what you're talking about. So you might lose some of that topical relevance in the beginning of the article. So Google is getting really good at understanding natural language and understanding what the article is about, but not that good. You need to make sure that you're not weakening the topical relevance by talking about a different product or just coming at it with an analogy from another niche. Something else you should think about, especially in the introduction, but actually throughout the article, is to not use passive language. So I have a few examples here that I'll show you on the screen. For example, you could say the iPhone always take better pictures, but you could also say pictures are better when taken with an iPhone. See how this second sentence here is a little more clumsy and is not really talking directly to the reader. You need to address the reader directly, just like you were talking to a friend, because otherwise it will get this passive tone that doesn't really engage with the reader. Always think that you're talking directly to somebody, and this can be a little tough if you're used to writing essays for schoolwork or whatever, but you really need to think about this because it will engage the reader more. And a little tip here, just something that I've seen a couple of times. Sometimes people will ask some stupid rhetorical questions in the introduction. I don't know why this happens, but it's kind of stupid. It's something like, would you like to make more money? And then you're supposed to say, yes, obviously. And I mean, I think it just scares people away because you make them feel a little dumb and a little stupid. And you should not talk down to people like they're 5-year-olds. You should talk to them like they're 13 or 15 and they know very little, but not like they're 2 or 5. So now let's finally talk a bit about how you should write those introductions. You should always start by showing the reader that you have exactly what they came for. You shouldn't just repeat the headline or the main title, but come at it from another angle and show what's in the article. Don't start with the cute story like we just talked about. Go straight to the point in the very first paragraph so they know exactly that you have what they came for and that you have the solution to the problem. And then you should also, in that very first short introduction, ensure them that you know what you're talking about. So show them that you have the good stuff and that you are an expert, or at least that you know what you're talking about. So you can mention one of the best tips from the article and promise them something that they will learn further down the article maybe, but really just establish this connection with them by showing them what's in the article and showing them that you have the good stuff and the best answer online. And of course I have much more on this in my course. I teach you everything there that you need in order to write, and also you can see me doing this for all of the articles in the Build With Us challenge where I build a site inside my course. If you want to check that out, you're always welcome. There's a link here. See you guys next time.